Hello, this is Ritchie Knox, a Virtuous Teacher, and this episode we'll be talking about the weight technique. That's right, the weight technique. It is a technique that I've come up with that I think will help you master the classroom space. All right, now before we talk about anything whatsoever, please direct your attention to the descriptions area where you can find out ways to support me and my initiatives. I certainly do appreciate it. Now, speaking of my initiatives, you have to visit bhshirts.com so that you can check out the new Virtuous Teacher t-shirts. Beautiful. All right, chef's kiss. And you can also email me directly at merch@virtuousteacher.com. All right, thank you. So let's start off this episode with some real clips of me in the classroom space, and we'll talk about them in just a moment. Check them out. Done? All right, scholars, just to make sure I'm not mistaken, how many triangles should you have?
15.
How many was it?
15.
Can I get everybody to say that?
15.
I just want to make sure being heard. All right. Yo, why are y'all so quiet? Hey, do me a favor. For like 10 seconds, can y'all all make some noise? Hey, for 10 seconds, I'm gonna just let you just make some noise real quick. In 3, 2, 1, go. Make some noise. What did y'all scared me? Y'all good? Was it the front? All right, I'm done. I'm gonna stop messing with y'all. All right, so in those two clips, I'm in a classroom full of students. All right, in one video, I think I'm wearing black. I'm in a classroom of 26 8th grade students. And the other clip, I'm in a class with 28 6th grade students, if you can believe it. And the class is so quiet that I have to talk to my students just so you know that I'm actually in a classroom full of individuals. Because otherwise, you would think I was in a classroom by myself. Now you have to ask yourself, what am I doing to achieve this level of focus amongst my scholars? And that is what this episode will be about. I would like to introduce to you a technique called the weight technique. All right, and let me explain. What is the weight technique? The weight technique is when the teacher exudes such confidence that he or she doesn't jump out for things to talk about, latch on to. They don't overcorrect. They don't over anticipate bad behaviors. Instead, they allow everything to flow naturally and come to him or her. Okay, that is the quintessential point of the weight technique. It's standing back, sitting back, scaling back, and allowing things to develop in your classroom and allowing behaviors to come to you. What it does is it helps alleviate anxiety. One of the scariest things as a teacher, and I'm sure you know this, is going into or having your kids come into your classroom space and not knowing what is going to happen. That is terrifying. And, even though I'm a veteran teacher, I've been doing this for so long at a very high level, there are still times when I'm very concerned and nervous about the unknown. But that is the quintessential point of the weight technique. You cannot control everything. It's understanding that you can't control everything. And instead of trying to control and force your control over the situation, you allow things to just happen and you address them as they do. Okay, because it is not your fault that a student can't behave themselves. It's not your fault that they can't sit in the chair. It's not your fault that they can't hold a conversation without using profanity. And as teachers, we take on all of that. That's something that we make our fault, our problem. Well, according to the weight technique, it's not your problem or fault at all. Instead, you scale back and you wait for these things to happen and you address them as they happen because you can't control it. And I want to break it down even further. and give you some things that I typically do or utilize as far as mental state to get myself prepared to utilize what I call the wait technique. Number one, I have to be prepared emotionally. I make sure that I'm balanced. The one thing that doesn't correlate well with the wait technique is just being emotionally unstable. If you're having a bad day and you're not able to control your emotional output, the wait technique will not work for you, because everything a student do or does, you're going to lash out and you're going to have a comment or statement about it. The wait technique is the exact opposite, is almost being silent and waiting for things to happen. If you can think of a robot that was teaching a class, the robot would not lash out emotionally. Instead, the robot would wait and, do their job, take attendance, take roll, give out instructional information. And as things happened in the environment in which the robot inhabited, let's say profanity, then the robot would address the profanity. But the robot wouldn't be afraid, nervous, emotional, or anything, because nothing that these students choose to do in this environment is because of the robot. It's just their natural inclination or natural character. And that is the big point in the wait technique. You're not lashing out for things to correct, or you're not looking necessarily for things to correct. You're scaling back, you're being patient, and you're observing the environment. And as things happen, you address them, but you're waiting for them to actually take place, because there is a small chance that they won't. Okay, the next thing I like to do is be proactive. I want to make sure I already have everything in place. I already have what I want to do in order mentally. All right, when they come in, I'm going to do attendance. I'm going to do this, and that. Everything is already in order. So when behaviors go awry or students do things that I didn't anticipate, it doesn't break my entire class, because I was already ready. I was already prepared in just about every way possible. Next, let things come to you. And this is probably the meat and potatoes of the wait technique. Let things come to you. Yes, this student has a track record. Yes, this student typically does this, and that every day. We get all that. But let them do it. Let it come to you. Don't anticipate it. And most importantly, don't blame yourself when they do it. Sometimes as teachers, when students do certain things, we take it upon ourselves as if it's our fault. Like, my class must be pretty bad, or I must be a bad teacher, because otherwise this student wouldn't be doing this. Well, no, actually, they probably would. And this is why you wait for those behaviors before you overcorrect them, because it's not your fault when they do happen. It's kind of like being on the road and you're driving. If a situation occurs that slows down traffic, did you really have anything to do about it? Was it your fault? Probably not. It's just like, look, okay, I'll deal with it. Now that I'm here and it's happening, I'll deal with it. But I'm not going to blame myself, because this is out of my control. This student's behavior is not something that I can control necessarily. Now, I can react to that behavior and give appropriate consequences, but I'm not in this person's mind to push buttons to do certain things. That's not my jurisdiction. Next, be as silent as possible. Let me give you one of the funniest things that I can tell you as a virtuous teacher. When you're not overly talkative, you know what happens? It makes the kids uncomfortable. And certainly, I'm not telling you to make the kids uncomfortable on purpose. But what I am saying is, when somebody is quiet, you'll notice that you start to feel uncomfortable. Like, hey, why? Shouldn't they be saying something? So obviously, you can't be silent as the teacher, because you do have to give out certain, informational bits and pieces. Yes, but you're not talking unnecessarily. So for me, I don't usually talk unless I have to. And you'll notice that in the video clip, I've already done all my talking, and I'm pretty much grading papers and expecting the students to do what they are supposed to do. I'm not looking for kids talking. I'm not looking for problems to happen. I gave out the instruction, which is my job, and then I made myself busy to also model what the expectation is. I'm working, so you should be working. That's the kind of deal I'm talking about. But you'll notice I'm being silent. You will never have a silent environment until you learn how to be silent yourself. I can't make it any clearer than that. Until you learn how to, be silent and monitor your own words, you should never expect your students to do it. If you can't be silent and work, you should never expect your students to do it. So yes, that is what I do. I model the behavior that I want to see from my students. And as they look up and they look at me, they'll notice I'm not looking to make sure they're not talking. No, he's engaged in what he's doing. He's working. He's just working in the environment with us. It's almost like he's a student as well. An older student, if you will. So, they look up, they see me working, and it's like, hey, so maybe I should be working. That typically happens. The next thing is be as still as possible. Not too many movements. When I take my attendance, I'm not really moving a lot. I'm just looking to see, pushing a button. Looking to see, pressing a button. Here, not here, pushing a button. So I'm very still. I'm not overly animated. And it contributes to the peace within the environment. Okay, next, be consistent. When students know the exact way that you're going to do things, it does remove the anxiety from them. They know they're going to come into class. I'm going to do attendance. I'm going to call any student that missed their quiz. I'm going to open up the floor for makeup work. I'm actually going to use the exact same words, all right, every single time. So they know when I say certain things, it acts as a cue. I'll say something to the effect of, now I'm going to open up the floor for makeup work. And I'll see students like, oh, snap, looking in book bags and starting to get themselves prepared because they know that we're at that point in the class. It's like a TV show. You have the intro, then you have the introduction of whatever that episode is going to be. Then you have a problem. Then you have the solution. Then you have the happy moment. Then you have the outro. It's the same thing. Even if you go to the movie theater and you go see a film, you know how it's going to go. It's consistent. All right. The beginning is we're going to learn all the characters' names. Okay. The middle is we're going to kind of be bored and almost ready to go to sleep. Then something's amazing, something crazy is going to happen, and we're going to have this big old problem. Then they're going to solve the problem, and then the movie's going to go off. It's the same thing. It's consistent. I don't care what movie you go and see. You know that the good person is going to win. You see what I'm saying? It's consistent. Like, the cues. Like when you go see a horror film, you know that when the person says, I'll be right back, you just know it's consistent amongst all films. You know that person's not coming back. You know that when you watch Scooby-Doo and they say, hey, let's split up, you know how this all plays out. So, and I don't know why I'm using those references, but the point is my class is situated in that same way where my students know when certain things happen, they act as cues, and it removes the anxiety amongst the class itself. Okay, so I'm very consistent always. All right, always. Next is patience. You have to be patient. You want to come across as being patient. Yes, everything is going to flow. Let everything develop. Again, as a teacher that utilizes a technique called the wait technique, you have to wait. And I'm not saying sit there and wait for kids to be quiet. What I'm saying is handle everything from a space of grace. Let's say you walk into your classroom, everything is set up. You're ready for your class comes in, and they come in chaotic. They come in crazy. Guess what you're not doing if you're utilizing the wait technique? You're not lashing out. Sit down, be quiet. You're not doing any of that. You're going to be patient and work from a space of calmness. You can still direct and correct from a space of calm. For example, you know what, sir, please come to the phone. You're standing on top of the table. Please come to the phone and contact the parent. Notice I'm very calm. I'm patient. I'm not using too many words. I'm not too animated. You're on the table. I can't believe I'm not doing any of that. Sir, please come to the phone. Call your parents. Right now you're standing on a table, and you know that is certainly something we do not do in this classroom space. Okay? No, but I was standing there to grab my parent. Sir, please come to the table. Here's my last time telling you. Please come to the table so you can contact your parent. You're not coming. Okay. On the phone, call the parent. So it's like you're patient, and of course you're using the wait technique. So no, you had no idea that this student was going to come in and stand on a table, and you're not rattled by it because you're proactive. You're ready. You anticipated it. You're not, thrown off guard. You knew that you sign up to be a teacher and that you're going to deal with obscene and abstract behaviors on a daily basis. So nothing catches you by surprise. And of course, you waited to call his parent. You didn't, see him walk over there with his group of friends and say, you know what, this is going to be a bad situation. Sir, no, you waited it out. You saw what was going to happen, and then you corrected it when it happened. Because there was a small glimmer of a chance that student was going to walk into class, sit down, and say nothing at all. And if you never learn to utilize the wait technique, you'll miss those moments when they do occur. Yes, most of the time you're going to have to correct several behaviors in a daily in a day. Yes, you're going to have to correct several behaviors in the class. Yes, these are very, very obvious things. But when you're consistent in how you correct those things and how you approach the class, eventually you have that magic moment that you see in the video. Eventually, every student is going to realize, you know what? I'm going to chill today. I saw what happened to this student. I remember what happened to me when. You see what I'm saying? So because I've corrected certain behaviors the exact same way, I don't put any emotion in it. If you do something, there will be a consequence every single time, and the consequence will usually be about the same. All right, and I as far as consequences are concerned, I typically give the student the opportunity to address the situation themselves. And then if they can't address it, I get a parent on the line. I don't go beyond that. Fix it yourself, or I'm going to fix it. That's pretty much my MO. And if the parent can't fix it, I'll have administration fix it. But that's pretty much how it goes for me. A student might come in, use profanity. I'll call them to my desk and say, hey, I'm going to document your behavior and your language. You said the F word today. I'm going to give you a warning. Please keep your language clean. They'll roll their eyes, go sit back down. So that is their chance to fix it. Then they said again, okay, all right, go ahead and call your parents. And then I'll speak with their parents and say, on this day, I gave them a warning. Today, the F word comes out again. Can you please speak with your scholar and let them know, why this is wrong? Okay, that was the parent's opportunity to fix it. And quite frankly, I'll give the parent a second call or a second opportunity to fix it before I move on to administration. But the point is, I'm not exerting too much energy into the situation. I'm very patient in my approach. And of course, I'm very consistent. But I'm letting things develop. Today, it happened. I was doing my attendance, and I remember thinking to myself, wow, this class is extremely quiet, almost uncomfortably quiet. And I asked myself, what am I doing right now? And I figured it out. I said, you know what? What I'm doing is I'm being very patient. I'm being still. I'm not saying a lot. And because I'm doing these things, there's not much for the students to latch onto in terms of behavior or behavioral disruptions or anything. It's just like, you have a teacher in here. He's in complete control, but he's not overly animated. He's calm. He's very, very concise in his movements. He has a track record of correcting bad behavior. I don't know if I want to be the first one to jump out there and stick my head above ground. You know what? I'm going to just sit here and kind of wait for it. So it's funny because when you use the wait technique, the students also use the wait technique. They're like, you know what? I'm going to wait for him to give me direction, right? I'm going to wait for him to give me a cue. I'm not going to take a leap of faith and just do something completely disruptive to the environment because I just know that he's going to correct it. He always does. He's very consistent in the way that he does his thing. So I'm going to wait for him to tell us the next thing that he wants us to do. And I'm going to do it. You know what? Because I don't want unnecessary drama in my life. You know, there are students who have that mindset. And, that's kind of how that goes. Now, my class is often described as a few things. Peaceful. I'll have someone walk into the classroom and I always look at their face. They have one of two faces, confusion or admiration. Confusion as to why is this class so quiet? Or why is that student who gives me a lot of problems being quiet for Mr. Knox? I see that all the time. Another one is admiration, like, wow, this is a very peaceful environment. I heard that compliment about 3 weeks ago. One of my favorite compliments ever. You'll also notice that my classrooms are very disciplined. You'll see students doing things on their own without me interacting with them or saying anything because I've already explained it at some point, whether it be that week or weeks prior. But they know the expectation and I enforce the expectation with rewards and consequences. That's pretty much how it goes. So you'll see students walking, picking things up, doing everything on their own. And I guess the unspoken part of the wait technique that definitely contributes to a very respectful environment is how well you communicate instructions. The better you communicate instructions, the better your class will run because what you say and how you say it and how you deliver the information to the students will dictate how well they understand the assignment. And you'll notice when students understand the assignment, they'll implement complete the assignment at a better level of accuracy. But if students don't quite understand the way that you teach, they don't understand what you're saying or what the expectation is, that's where most teachers get their problems. But I break things down in a way that I had one teacher say this. They said, I think they were sitting in on my class. They said, you broke that down so well that I would feel stupid if I didn't understand it. That's their words, not mine. So that is how I teach. I teach in a way that is so fundamentally basic. And it doesn't matter if I'm talking about something that's high level or low level. I'm going to break it down in a way that anybody can consume it. I can take my lesson for an 8th grade class and break it down for a 3 or a 4-year-old. And that is how I teach, so that everyone understands. So when it's time to get into action and everyone to start doing their job, they know exactly what to do because I gave them very, very, very finite detail about what to do. And I followed it up with a visual. Now, this is something for another episode, but I try to give students 2 types of lesson. Audible from my voice, and also some type of visual to connect the audible part of the lesson too. So now they're getting it in a double dose. And again, it strongly contributes to the environment in my class. Another thing that I often hear is organized. Again, it kind of lends to what I just said prior. Next, well-behaved or good. I often am told that my classes are very well-behaved, and you can see that from the clip. But again, it goes back to the weight technique. You know, I'm sitting there, I'm just doing my job. And in my head, my students can't see this part. They can't see me or hear me thinking to myself, be patient. Let students just kind of breathe. Let the environment breathe. Don't chase bad behavior. If someone wants a problem, they'll show me they want a problem. That's the weight technique in a nutshell. If students want a problem, then they'll show you that they want the problem. And if they're not showing you that they want any behavioral issue or problem with you or what have you, then just wait it out, wait it out. I'm not sure if you've ever been in a situation where the next day you're supposed to have some kind of conflict with somebody, or somebody said, when I see you, I'm gonna get you, and it's kind of like you kind of go in that place, that building, and you're kind of like trying to anticipate them coming up to you. Well, for me, it's kind of like, I'm not going to look for you. I'm not going to jump out and try to find you. I'm just going to kind of live my life. I'm going to do what I normally do. And if you come to me and you seem to have that type of energy, then we'll address it at that time. But that is the wait technique. You're waiting for things to happen. If they don't happen, then you're moving on with the procedure. Now, what's really happening in my classroom when I'm implementing the weight technique, or what is really happening in the video that you were able to take a look at? It's a few things, okay? What's really happening? Students lack something negative or distracting to attach to. Because I'm working, I have on classical music, and I'm focused on what I'm doing. I've already given out very strong and refined information in terms of instruction. I gave audible and visual examples of what the expectation is. What you're seeing is students knowing exactly what to do, and also you're seeing them react to my expectation. That is a thing. You have to communicate your expectations at some point in your class to your students, okay? And my expectation is that students must be working. And it's funny, I give my students the leisure to have conversation while they work, but I'm also monitoring whether or not their hand is moving while they're having conversation. So a lot of times students lack the ability to work and talk. So if I see a student talking, I'll always correct them and say, hey, I see you talking, but I don't see any work happening. And once you do that 400 times a week, at some point you get to that very magic moment where they're like, you know what? I'm just going to work, because I know if I'm working and talking, it won't look right to Mr. Knox. He's going to call me out. So I'll just work. And you see that happening where if I were to look up, and I can't show you them, but if I were to look up, I would see everyone working. Everyone. And you can hear that everyone's working. Like I said, 26 students in one class, 28 in another. Everyone's working, every single person. And that's what you are actually witnessing, everyone working at the same time. The next thing you're witnessing is no one wanting to be first. When the entire classroom is quiet, or the majority, or 94%, 90%, 86% of the students are working, no one wants to be the person that disrupts that environment. And that's what we call the culture. All right. The culture of my classroom is we work hard in here. So you don't want to be that one person that disrupts the culture of learning when everyone's moving in one direction. You don't want to be that student driving in the opposite direction when everybody's going one way, because we have created a culture of discipline in the classroom. And that comes over time. And you're seeing that in the video. That is not something that's going to happen immediately. But if you are consistent in what you allow and what you check and what you provide consequences to, over time, the culture of your classroom will change, and students will not want to be the first one to create issues. Now, you'll have those very courageous students who push the envelope. Of course, you'll always have students that do that, and they'll be your leaders, your ringleaders. And then as those students do those things, they'll generate followers who will say, you know what, we can kind of start doing our thing. But if you check the behavior of the leader that's moving things in a negative direction, if you check the behaviors correctly, phone calls home, administrative, blah, blah, blah. If you do that, then even the leader will keep their cool because they don't even want those consequences. All right. The next thing you're seeing in the video that I can't quite show you while in that particular space that I can talk about now retrospectively is past experience of discipline. How do I say this? Past experience of disciplinary shock. All right. What I mean by that is, those classes have students that have very, very poor behavioral management skills. But I've addressed their behaviors so effectively in the past that they may be, shall I say, experiencing some, some nervousness as it relates to disciplinary shock. A student is able to curse very freely in one class, and then they come to your class, and the minute they say the F word, the B word, you're already on the phone with their parents within 2 minutes. That's disciplinary shock. It's like, wait, I didn't even think that was going to happen. Or a student uses their phone and they're using it as a gag to get a laugh. And they've been able to do that in every class. But in your class, you've confiscated the phone and you're already on the phone with their parent, letting them know that the phone is being used not for safety reasons or the reasons they purchased it, but it's being used as a joke or a gag. And guess what, mom? He or she has missed the last 3 homework assignments. He or she has been a disciplinary issue for the last 2 classes. I'm giving very concise feedback. And that is disciplinary shock. So you know what? I don't want that to happen again. You will never know that I have maybe 4 or 5 kids per class, that have tremendous disciplinary issues as it relates to other teachers. But I've addressed their behaviors in the past, and I did it so effectively that they don't want to experience that again. No one wants to experience a bad or shocking moment that wasn't necessarily in their favor more than they have to. And that's what you're seeing in the video. All right, next. You know what? I'll stop there and I'll save anything else for personal consultations. Look, I offer consultations if you'd like me to help you personally. If you're listening to my content, you're watching my content, you have questions, you would like to know what I think about your individual classroom space, because yes, I've cultivated this space over years and years and years of work. But perhaps you need one-on-one help, and I can't help you without really knowing your situation. So like what I'm bringing to you in this video, for example, is very broad information based on my experiences. But I know, everyone has their own individual factors that they must contend with. So if you need one-on-one help, please contact me at help@virtuousteacher.com. Hit me up in the comment section. Maybe we can schedule something where I can really give you pointers in a way that I can't necessarily do so now. Okay, so that is a big reason, and I don't really say it often, why I created this whole Virtuous Teacher platform, is to help teachers become more confident in their space. Yes, these videos and these podcast episodes do go a long way towards helping people, but there could be a situation where you take something from my content, apply it, and it doesn't fit well because there's more to it, and I can't necessarily give you that all the time in these videos. But nevertheless, I think that I know I try my best to explain the weight technique. I'm not sure how it comes across, because again, I get it, but I have to break it down in a way that you get it, and that's so difficult to do. All right, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you.